Hello, so today we're going to be talking about something that I love so much, the Fates. And where I got the information about the Fates, there's some Googling when it comes to other cultures, but the Greek mythology, I got it from Theogony and the core goddess. So Theogony is written by Hesiod, one of the oldest Greek writers that we know of, and it's the origins of the gods and goddesses and fates and fairies and XYZ. And then this is the core goddess. It's written by Saffron Rossi, who has a PhD in something, but she teaches mythology, psychology, archetypal stuff. And this book covers a lot of the spiritual roots of femininity through the lens of Greek mythology. It's really awesome if you're interested in this kind of stuff. It really covers everything. And I found myself sending it to a bunch of people. So yeah, I wanted to give them credit, but today we're talking about the Fates, okay? The Fates themselves are personified by a trio sisterhood. And it's like this in many cultures. I have read it in fairy tales, I've read it in Native American legends. You know, it's the three sisters sewing. Kind of like this picture that I have of the Fates. And it has all the skulls on the bottom, which we'll get to. Okay, but the three sisters are Clotho, the spinner, Laches, the apparitioner, and Atropos, she who cannot be turned. I'm sorry if I pronounce those wrong, but these are the daughters of Themis in certain tellings and Zeus. And Zeus himself, although he is the king of gods, is subject to the Fates. And Themis, her name itself means order, and you've probably seen her because she's the goddess depicted with the cloth around her eyes, and she has the scale, you know? And this kind of is a reference to Egyptian mythology. So you think of the feather on the scale, you know, does your soul get to go on, or I forget exactly how that goes, but there's the feather of Mot, the balance, right? And she is the balance. She is the order of the universe. That's why she has the scale. And along with the Fates, she has the three hours, which is another trio sisterhood that are their siblings. Okay, they have Uamnia, right order, Dike, which is justice, and Eurene, which is peace. And I think that these two, it's very important that they come from the same womb and they work together, because you think about other Greek siblings. Okay, you've got Apollo and Artemis, sun consciousness, moon consciousness. You can't have just one. It's all about balance. So, you know, your fates come, and a lot of times they're seen as, you know, the dark fates. That's how Hesiod writes about them. And, you know, he also writes that they're the daughters of night, which we'll get into. But on Themis for a moment and the hours is, your fate comes exactly at the right time. These two things cannot be pulled apart. You know, you don't just have your fate, you also have it at the right time. And I think we all intuitively know this, that, you know, you're 5 minutes late to something and you meet someone, or you're 10 minutes early and then there was a traffic accident right behind you. You know, your fate is intimately tied with ours. And I think this brings a lot of psychological peace, because, like, for me, I'm always worried about being murdered, because I grew up watching all horror movies when I was a child. I watched The Birds when I was 3 or something. So I have this extreme fear of being murdered. And I found that trusting in the fates and their combination with the hours, you know, whether it is real or not, pragmatically, has been so stabilizing for me. You know, and that's what spirituality is supposed to be. So I have a particular love of the fates. They give me a lot of stability and strength to not live in fear. In Hesiod's Theogony, the fates are the daughters of Nyx, who is night. Okay, and Nyx herself is the daughter of Chaos. Chaos is the first to exist. Okay, chaos is first. And, you know, if you think about archetypes, archetypal reality, okay, chaos and order, chaos is feminine and order is masculine, okay? These are archetypes. These are not literal. These are just archetypes, okay? And chaos, you know, gives birth to Gaia, it gives birth to Tartarus, and also gives birth to Nyx, okay? Night. And, you know, the fact that night then gives birth to the fates, that just tells how the fates have been part of this reality since the very, very beginning, much before Zeus Themis, you know, these are weaving what reality is itself, okay? And Nyx gives birth.
I did not say this very clearly. Night or Nyx gives birth to the 4 things that I'm about to list, the 4 elements of reality.
So you've got the Dark Fates, they're called.
I just said the Dark Fates.
You've got Doom, you've got the Tribe of Dreams, and Death Sleep, okay? And she gives birth to these without masculine, all on her own, which makes these purely feminine forces, okay? Feminine parts of the archetypes, feminine parts of reality itself, okay? And who minds these fates but they're these singing maidens that mine them, called the Hesperides? They're the Hesperides, and they also mine in this garden on the far, far end of the world, this apple tree, right, that is guarded by a dragon or a snake, I forget. And apples are symbolic of life and rejuvenation. You know, in Norse mythology, it is the apple which the gods are able to keep on living, okay? It is the apple which rejuvenates, and I think it's important that this same force is tending to them both, right? Because they're actually being guarded by the dragon. Anyway, it's the same force that's looking after them both, because, so, being the fates themselves, being with doom, death, and dreams, you know, these are feminine parts of consciousness. And, you know, feminine consciousness, back to Apollo and Artemis, the sun shines, okay? It shines straight on. The light is clear. Now, the feminine consciousness, lunar consciousness, it is shadowy, okay? It's not clear, it's diffuse, it's a very strange light, okay? And it has phases, okay? You've got different phases of the moon, and this speaks to the multiplicity of the feminine psyche, the feminine consciousness.
Also with the moon phases, you've got the crescent moon, okay, the building. This is the maiden. Then you have the full moon. This is manifestation, and this is the mother, okay? And then you have the waning moon. This phase of the moon cycle is the crone, and this is the end of life, okay? The destroyer. If you notice the Baba Yaga necklace that I'm wearing in the video, this is symbolic of the story of the Baba Yaga. The Baba Yaga can take away life, and she does.
The mother who gives life, you know, you see the breasted sculptures and things that people would worship. Well, the mother who gives life it's also the feminine. The feminine that gives life is also the feminine that destroys and kills. And you can see this in many cultures, okay? And I just don't think it's paralleled masculinely. So you think of, you know, the bad guys that are the masculine. You think of, you know, Loki, or you think of trickster, Loki. Or Set, you know, from Egyptian mythology. You know, it's more, you know, craziness. I mean, he is the god of chaos. All of these things overlap, right? But it's more of this mental thing. You know, Loki is very tricky. Whereas you think of the feminine destroyer goddesses, you know, you've got Sekhmet in Egyptian mythology, who goes down and is, you know, taking vengeance for something bad that humans did, and she loses herself in this vengeance and starts just crazy bloodshed, and the other gods devise this plan to get her drunk so that they can stop her. You know, Kali has a very similar story where she's just going to kill everyone in Hindu mythology. And in Greek mythology, you have Medea, okay? So Jason and the Argonauts. Jason and the Argonauts go on this quest to get the Golden Fleece, right? And where the Golden Fleece is, Medea is the daughter of the king. And Medea is struck by Eris's arrow and falls in love with Jason. So she is just blinded by love, will do anything for Jason, and she helps him get the Golden Fleece and get out of there. But in the process, she kills her brother and her father. And then when she's in this new land with Jason, everyone looks down on her. They see her as a witch and from this savage land, you know, this faraway savage land. And they reject her, and so Jason wants to take a new wife because of this. And so what does Medea do? You know, when she's faced this ultimate betrayal, she kills their 2 sons. And, you know, this is an archetypal landscape that we're in right now. You know, these are not literal deaths. This is mythology. This is speaking to the psyche, parts of consciousness. Okay, that's what mythology is talking about. And this killing is not literal. You know, when she falls in love with Jason, she kills her brother and her dad in a metaphorical sense. She's cutting off her home and what she knows to have this new life and adventure. Okay, she's killing that part of herself to make room for the new. Okay, when her husband ultimately betrays her, she cuts off the most sacred part of their connection, the life they created together, so that she can move on to something new. You know, she's trying to show us that to make room for a new life, you have to cut off the old. You know, and that's the life, death, life nature of the feminine. You know, that is something the feminine understands. You must cut off the old to rejuvenate the new. You know, death always means a rebirth. Okay, and so I think that's what these apples are about. So this apple connection is this creation of life through destroying what no longer works. And this is something that the fates themselves are a part of, because this is part of the weaving of what our reality is. You know, this is part of the divine law. That's why they're also the daughters of Themis. You know, this is the divine order that without this ma'at, from Egyptian, without this balance, reality doesn't exist. You have to have balance. So if there is new life that the feminine creates, it also has to destroy the old life. That's the balance. Yet another origin creation of the Fates is from Anke. They're birthed from Anke, which means necessity. Okay, I got this from that book by Saffron Razi, and she describes them as, in this way, forming the nature of the universe itself. And this was extremely central for Plato, who described them as weavers, you know, spinning a thread in the way described by many cultures. And Hillman, who is my favorite depth psychologist, James Hillman, describes the fate as giving the lot that is necessary. And this really struck me because something that I've always intuitively believed, and something that is spoken about in evolutionary astrology, which I study, even though I don't, you know, believe everything, so don't attribute it all to me, but this idea that you have the circumstances you do for a purpose, you know, and evolutionary astrology says to evolutionize your soul. Now, whether this is your particular soul or an evolution of consciousness generally, that your little bit of consciousness experienced in this body and this life adds to the collective consciousness and makes it wiser and evolving itself. That's kind of what I believe. But basically, the circumstances, the lot that you're given is necessary for you to learn what is fated, what is your destiny, what is your purpose to learn in this life. And I just see this as so empowering, because then you're not supposed to have anyone else's life, anyone else's brains, anyone else's, you know, looks, you know, money, whatever. You are supposed to learn exactly what it is, that you have this life, and it is a part of this collective consciousness, you know, and you are put exactly where you are for a reason, you know. I just think that is so empowering. So what I found as the most intriguing telling of the Fates was actually from Norse mythology, which I happened to be listening to, but you know how those things happen. And in Norse mythology, the Fates are the most powerful entities in the entire cosmos. This is because, just like Greek mythology, even the gods are subject to the Fates. And in Norse mythology, it is the Fates which water the world tree with their sacred water, okay? World tree with their sacred water. Okay, they give water to the life of everything, okay? And in Norse mythology, the name of these three Fates line up perfectly with the three archetypal waters of astrology, okay? And so let's start with the first. So Orthor, which means destiny, fate, what has come to pass, is the water of the womb in Cancer, okay? Because Cancer, that archetype has to do, it's the lowest, okay, the astrological wheel, Cancer is the lowest part. It is who you are in the deepest parts of yourself. It is the parts of yourself you are not even conscious of, okay? It is who you were at home, okay? And it's so perfect that this lines up with destiny and fate because you're fated by your home life. You know, you can't really get away from how you were conditioned as a child. I mean, we can definitely evolve and transmute and change ourselves for sure, but that aspect of, you know, your birth story, in-depth psychology, you can look at your birth story as a clue into what your fate is, okay? To what your myth that you will live is. We can talk about that later, but basically these emotional security patterns of the fourth house, of Cancer, of the moon, these are the deepest parts of yourself, and they are who you are at the deepest part, and therefore your destiny, okay? And then you have Verdante, which is becomes or what is becoming. It's something like this, and this is perfect with the water of the Styx, okay? That is the water in Hades. This is Pluto, Scorpio, okay? Because what you're becoming depends on what you hold on to and what you let go of, okay? The Scorpio archetype is all about possessiveness, but also death and rebirth. It's like holding on, but then killing off, okay? Medea is the perfect figure for this archetype, okay? It's what are you becoming? What are you holding on to? And what are you letting go of, okay? And then the last one is Skuld, and it means guilt or debt, and this is so perfect with the 12th house, okay? Because the 12th house is the water of the ocean. You know, we've only explored 5% of the ocean, okay? Go back to that iceberg model of consciousness. The water of the ocean is symbolic of the unconscious, right? And you've got the tip of the iceberg, but then you've got the whole iceberg underneath, okay? And 12th house placements, okay, are extremely karmic placements. And, you know, you're guilty. You know, you're guilty of what you did in the past. You're now dealing with this is how the 12th house has been described, okay? And Pisces, Neptune, right? This is the alchemical process of dissolutio, of dissolving wherever you have Neptune placed or Pisces ruling in your birth chart. Those things will just dissolve out of your life, okay? They will just fade away, and then what are you left with? Like any Taurus risings, like me, you have your network just fades away, and you're like, why does this keep happening to me? Well, why does Neptune or dissolutio, Pisces, have to teach us? It has us rely purely on ourselves, you know, and not our ego self, because you're dissolving parts of your ego. My ego is, oh, I've got these friends, I've got this network. No, that's being stripped away. It's the capital S self, the transpersonal self, okay? It spiritualizes you. It's the most spiritual of all the planets, of all the placements. And if you look at the definition of karma, right? Guilt, okay? And they believe, the Buddhists, the Hindu, they believe that, you know, karma follows you from life to life, and astrology would be similar. Not that I believe about the life to life thing, but whatever, okay? That it comes from a past guilt. And how you resolve your karma in yoga is you take actions selflessly. You eliminate your selfish actions. And this is really misunderstood a lot, that it's all about eliminating desire. No, you're allowed to have desire. You just need to have it selflessly. You desire for it itself. You don't desire for your ego needs. And this is exactly what the 12th house is trying to do. It's trying to take away your ego needs. So I was mind blown when I realized that. I was like, okay, so each fate is governing these different water houses, you know, your 4th house, who you are, your emotional patterns, your 8th house, you know, how you need to transform yourself, what planets are in there that you will be destined to transform. Okay, your 12th house, what is dissolving to find the ultimate truth, the transpersonal self, you know, to get rid of the karma, okay, to just rely on the spirit. So the fates themselves, you know, they're transpersonal. They're working at a much broader frame than us, okay? And, you know, there's this story of a man's destiny, right? I don't know if I'm going to tell it exactly right. It's by this Russian guy, I forget his name, but you can look it up. Just like the story of a man's destiny. Basically, he gets wounded, bad, and he gets captured by the Nazis, bad. But then he bests them in some kind of drinking thing and he escapes, okay? Good. But then he goes home and his whole family has been killed except for his son and his neighbors by these bombs. So bad, but also kind of good that he was captured by the Nazis then. And so then he's got this son, but on D-Day he finds out that his son has been killed. So then again, bad. But then there's this little boy whose whole family has been killed that finds him, and then he adopts him and they create a new family together, okay? They've got hope for a new life, and this was his destiny, right? And this, you know, you can see it play out all the time in reality. You know, it makes me think of John Walsh, who started the Missing and Exploited Children Foundation. So what happened to Mr. Walsh is his son, when he was 6, was kidnapped from Sears parking lot, I think it was Sears, and was murdered. And anyway, he went to the police, and the police would not listen to him. They were like, oh, they probably just ran away, whatever. There was no network to connect people to find these missing children. There was nothing for it. So his life mission, he made this place where now, you know, missing children, if it happens, people take it very seriously. Unlike with him, they didn't take it seriously at all. They're connected, they have all these resources so that they can find them, because they didn't even realize back then that the first 4 hours, the first 48 hours were the most vital. They blew those hours off as like, whatever, you know, he's gonna come back, he's probably just a runaway. So his fate was horrible, but he made something so great out of it that saved how many lives, you know? And this shows up in our everyday reality all the time. You know, you wake up a little late and then you run into this person that's so amazing. Or, you know, me, I twisted my ankle this summer. I had to sit and think so much about my life and who I am that definitely, you know, changed my consciousness in so many ways. And, you know, maybe if I didn't have my ankle where I'd sit at home, maybe I would have been out driving and gotten in a car accident. Or, you know, maybe if I had been 10 minutes earlier to this thing, you know, I would have been attacked by a dog, you know, anything. You don't know what the purpose of these things are. So I think that with all these stories, we have to, you know, humble ourselves to the fates. And I'm going to end with this little tidbit about Kronos. So Kronos, right? He's the one who freed his siblings, the Titans, from Uranus, who was keeping them trapped in Gaia by cutting off his phallus into the sea, right? This is what Aphrodite is born of. Anyway, his fate was told to him to be that his son would overtake him as he overtook his own father. So he repeated the cycle. And that's the thing about fate. There's a lot of like ancestral fate. You know, you've got these beliefs that, you know, you've got the karma of your ancestors as well, which I totally believe in, and it's within all the Greek stories. But anyway, okay, so he repeats what his fathers did, and he swallows all the children. That is until Zeus, which his mom hides from Kronos and gives him a stone instead. And Zeus grows up, and he's finally able to defeat his father, and so he gives him from Metis, I think it is, Metis, gives him this potion, and he pretends to be a servant and gives it to Kronos. And then he goes, you know, I am your son, and blah, blah, blah. And Kronos spits up the stone, as well as all the Olympians, which then go on to defeat Kronos and lock Kronos and all the other Titans in Tartarus. And the Olympians rule, right? That's Zeus, that's Demeter, that's X, Y, Z, we get it. But that stone that he spit up is at the Delphic Oracle, okay? The Oracle tells your fate, okay? It's symbolic of you cannot escape your fate, even if you are Kronos. You are still subject to fate. So I hope that leaves you feeling empowered and that, you know, you're here for a purpose. Every single person is subject to the fates, which means they're here for a purpose and a destiny. And, you know, don't be scared of it, and don't be disempowered by your circumstances. You know, your circumstances, it's perfect to how you are supposed to evolve, but it is obviously still your work to evolve yourself. But I don't think that the fates object you of, I hope object is the right word, object you of your responsibility. I think they're empowering that, you know what, these circumstances are mine for my, creative path, your fifth house, your sun, this is your creative destiny, okay? Your path of maturation is fated, and it is for every single one of you. Anyway, so I hope that is empowering, and have a wonderful week and night or day wherever you are, and thank you so much for watching, and thank you to the Fates, I guess. Yeah.